Hi everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. You are going to love today's fruity and delicious cake all spring and summer long. I'll be making my Berry Tres Leches Cake. This incredible cake is just so light and fluffy and fruity. You are going to love it from the very first bite. We're going to start things off with my basic vanilla sponge cake layers. Soak them with a milk mixture, add a really fluffy and creamy mascarpone whipped cream frosting, and loads of berries. I love that this cake is so simple to make, and it's so elegant, so pretty, and it's perfect for any occasion. Let's get started. I'm going to show you how to make this incredible cake. And I'm going to get things started today with my basic vanilla sponge cake recipe. We're going to need two 8-inch cake layers, and then we'll split them in half so we have 4 layers total. And the first thing we're going to do is add 6 large eggs into a mixer bowl. Now I have a separate video recipe for my sponge cake if you want like a super in-depth tutorial. I'll leave the link down in the video description box below. We'll just do a really quick run through today. And we'll need 1 cup of white granulated sugar and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'm going to set my mixer to high speed and whisk the eggs and sugar together for about 7 to 10 minutes until they're really thick, pale, and voluminous. And check out the texture of the eggs. So you want them to be extra light and fluffy, really voluminous and almost pale, like creamy white in color. And for my dry ingredients, I have 1 cup of all-purpose flour. To that, I'm going to be adding in 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Just combine that together. And this next step is really important. We're going to be adding in the flour really gradually. So I usually split the 1 cup of flour into thirds. We're going to add a little bit at a time using a fine mesh sifter. Sift the flour, and then I'll use my spatula to really gently but thoroughly fold from the bottom of the mixing bowl. You want to make sure that all of that flour is well incorporated before you add the last batch, but do it really gently because the sponge cake gets all its volume from the eggs, and if the eggs fall flat, the cake is going to fall flat. So do this slowly and gently. I'll be using 2 8-inch cake pans today, and I've lined the bottom with parchment paper, and it's really important that you leave the sides ungreased. Don't use any kind of baking spray or grease on them. We're going to divide the sponge cake batter evenly between the 2 pans. And I'm going to use an offset spatula to spread this cake batter evenly to the edges, and you want to do this so that you get nice and level cake layers. I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sponge cakes are going to bake for about 21 minutes until they're a rich golden brown color on the top. As soon as they're done, I remove them out of the oven, and I like to run a knife along the edge of the pan to release the sponge cake from the sides, and then I'll invert it onto a cooling rack, let the sponge cakes cool completely. While they're cooling, we could get started on our mascarpone whipped cream frosting. It is the perfect complement for this Tres Leches cake. And for my frosting, I'm going to start out with 16 ounces of softened mascarpone cheese. I'm going to drop it into my mixing bowl here. And to my cheese, I'm going to be adding in 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And I also had about 2 tablespoons of sweetened condensed milk left over from my can that we're going to be using for the Tres Leches mixture. So instead of wasting, I'm just going to add it into the frosting. It's going to add a little bit of sweetness and flavor. And I'm going to measure out about 1 cup of confectioner's sugar. If you want your frosting to be a little bit sweeter, you can use up to 2 cups of sugar for this recipe. And I'm going to grab my hand mixer, or you could do this in a stand mixer as well, and just cream the cheese for a couple minutes until it's nice and smooth. Next, I'm going to pour in 2 cups of chilled heavy cream. And you want to make sure that it's nice and cold so that it whisks up nicely. I've switched over to my whisk attachment. I'm going to start out on a slow speed just so that the cream doesn't go flying everywhere. We're going to mix this until we get stiff peaks. And this mascarpone frosting is a dream. It is so light and fluffy, but it holds its shape a lot better than just a regular whipped cream, and it's going to be perfect for this cake. Now my cake layers are not done cooling yet, so I'm actually going to place this frosting into the fridge, let it chill there for now until my cake layers are completely cooled. You want to make sure that that sponge cake is cooled, otherwise it's going to melt the whipped cream. And now for my tres leches mixture, and this is what I'll be using to soak my sponge cake layers with. I have 1 cup of sweetened condensed milk. To that I'm going to add in half a cup of whole milk and half a cup of evaporated milk. I'm just going to whisk this with my little spatula. You could also use a whisk, and you want to make sure that that sweetened condensed milk combines really well with the other 2 milks. My sponge cake layers have cooled completely, and now I can get started on assembling this cake. So I have my mascarpone frosting, my tres leches mixture. I also have a platter of some fresh berries. I have some blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, and I sliced up some strawberries as well. I want to load this cake up with as much berries as I possibly can. The first thing I'm going to do is grab my sponge cake layers. I'm going to grab a long serrated knife and then split each layer in half. So we have 4 layers total. And then for assembling the cake, before I add any of the frosting or berries, I'm going to generously soak the sponge cake with the tres leches mixture. And this is why I love to use sponge cakes for these type of cakes, the tres leches cakes, because they can absorb so much moisture and they do it so well. Next, I'm going to add on a generous amount of my mascarpone frosting. And I'm going to use a little offset spatula to spread this frosting evenly to the edges. Now today I want to do an open style naked cake, so I'm actually going to just press the whipped cream just a little bit outside the edges so it looks nice and pretty. And then I could start adding my fruit. So I'm going to add in my sliced strawberries. You want to kind of add some right on the edge so that it looks nice and pretty if you're keeping the same style, the naked kind of open cake. And I'm going to add my next cake layer on top, and I'm going to repeat the same process. I'm going to soak the sponge cake first generously with the tres leches mixture, and then we'll add our mascarpone frosting and more berries. And before I add my final layer on top, I'm actually going to soak it with the milk mixture first, and then we'll invert it on top. And you want to very gently transfer that final layer on top because it is going to be a little fragile because we have it all soaked with the milk mixture, so be careful when you transfer that over. Make sure everything's nice and level and pretty. Oh, this already looks so good. Going to add the rest of my sliced strawberries in the center. And I like to build like a little mountain of berries right on top, just to make this cake look extra special. And how pretty is this berry cake? I absolutely love the open size. It's more of like a rustic summery cake. It's so easy to put together. You guys are going to love it. I'm just going to add a couple more finishing berries on the top, and I'm going to place this into the refrigerator, let it chill there for a couple hours, and then we'll come back to slice into it and enjoy it. And now for the best part, let's cut into the stunning cake to see what it looks like on the inside and enjoy it. I'm gonna clear a little path on the top here so I can slide my knife into the inside. And this is quite a tall cake, so you'll want to use a nice and long, sharp knife. Let's check this out. Look at this. Is that not heavenly? All those layers of the sponge cake, and they're so delicate and moist because of all the tres leches milk liquids that we added in there and all those fruit and berries. This is going to be ridiculously delicious. I can't wait to dig in and enjoy. And how stunning is this Berry Tres Leches cake? It turned out so elegant and beautiful. This is going to be perfect for any spring or summertime occasion or celebration. Mother's Day is around the corner, and I bet you your mom would love this incredible cake for her special day. Don't forget to head on down the video description box for the recipe link. I'll have everything up on my website, including this recipe with metric measurements. And now time to dig in and enjoy. This looks so incredible. I am loving this cake. Those thick layers of the mascarpone whipped cream, those delicate sponge cake layers, they've soaked up that incredible tres leches mixture, the berries. This is just awesome. Just wow, this cake is so phenomenal. I love the delicate flavors, and it's so light and fluffy, just unbelievably light and fluffy. If you are looking for the most perfect and most delicious tres leches cake ever, this is the recipe for you. It is just mind-blowingly delicious. All the incredible flavors combined together make for the most delicious cake. I love those delicate sponge cake layers. They've soaked in all the incredible milk mixture. You get a little bit of the flavor of that sweetened condensed milk, and that mascarpone whipped cream frosting is something else. It is just so light and fluffy, the perfect complement to those delicate sponge cake layers. And then you add in all those berries, and you cannot ask for a better spring or summertime cake. It is just perfection, because you're gonna love it so much. Don't forget to head on down the video description box for the recipe link. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. And if you do make this cake, you can share it with me on Pinterest, Instagram, or Facebook. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time with a new video.